Roller coaster of emotions since the Bills lost to the Broncos in the AFC divisional round 33-30 in overtime, capped off by an interesting press conference over at One Bills Drive, and it's only Wednesday, so who knows if it's actually capped off. Welcome to the Buffalo End Zone podcast, everyone. I'm Kevin Carroll.
We are proudly presented by Toyota. I'm Andy Young. This is our third Bills podcast in 4 days because there is a lot going on right now. Was there a power struggle? What led to Sean McDermott being fired? Brandon Beane doesn't take too kindly to what he believes is attack on his character. Lot to get to. Keon Coleman, Josh Allen, whole lot from this press conference.
And as the song from the 70s said, we've only just begun, Andy. So let's kick things off. Finally, after the loss to the Broncos, Bills held their end of the season media availability with the general manager, which they got to do, which we were waiting on, and they have it every year. But this year, plot twist, they fired Sean McDermott at the beginning of the week. So that's a little added flavor to just what the team needs to do to move on to the next year. And that takes center stage, Andy, and for the first time in a long time, owner Terry Pegula also there alongside Brandon Beane, remains the general manager, gets promoted to president of football operations. The two of them in front of the media fielding questions and talking about how this all went down and why the team's moving on from Sean McDermott and other issues that the team is looking at moving forward, including the whole thing. I got to say, the whole thing with Keon Coleman, I almost had to laugh at how quickly Terry Pegula jumped into that one. We'll get into that in a little bit, Andy. But Pegula saying he made his mind up that it was time to move on from Sean McDermott right quick.
And it was interesting because we arrived at One Bills Drive and the team's headquarters, going to the media room, and we knew that both Brandon Beane and Terry Pegula were scheduled to speak. Did that mean an opening statement from Terry Pegula, and then he walks away and hands it over to Brandon Beane for the rest, like he did with the Jarmo Kekalainen press conference on the Sabres side? Or would Pegula field questions, which he has not done related to the Bills, answered questions from reporters in this kind of a setting, we believe, since about 2019. So we're talking like 7 years since Terry Pegula has sat there at a press conference or at owners' meetings in a scrum or whatever it would be and fielded questions about his football club. And the magnitude of what he just did required him to be up there and take questions. That was very important. We'll get to whether you liked what he said, if he should be up there more often in the future. But he said he walked into the locker room after the Bills lost to the Denver Broncos in overtime in heartbreaking fashion to see Josh Allen sobbing at his locker, despondent. He went up to him and said, "Hey, that Brandon Cooks interception play, that was a catch." Josh didn't even look up or respond. He looked around, saw other people crying. Deion Dawkins was crying. Brandon Cooks. I saw Dalton Kincaid in tears in the locker room. A lot of guys. I'm not just singling out those guys. They're just top of mind.
Right.
A lot of guys very distraught. And then he saw Josh Allen's face battling tears during his press conference with the media afterwards. And he said in that moment, he decided, I have to make a change. We have hit the proverbial playoff wall here, and we can't move forward with Sean McDermott as our head coach. And he said he made his decision then, and it didn't change until it was announced Monday morning.
And he brought up, to me, it was how the Bills had finished the years and how they didn't win the AFC East this year. They were the 6th seed going into the tournament. And to me, it sounded like he was showing a progression of how things were getting worse for the Bills. And he mentioned that playoff wall that they expected to be to the Super Bowl by now. And
that's not what he meant, though.
I understand that, but that's what I took from it, but I was getting to that. I think he was trying to point out something else, but that's how it came across to me.
Yeah, he actually was pointing out that they have been in the playoffs and for the most part been a high seed throughout most of this tenure, and that they have not gotten over the hump. But to reach that point, he believed it was mostly on the roster that had been built.
And that was we often talk about the eye test and what you see with your own eyes. And I find it hard to be on this bandwagon that this roster was some great roster, that Brandon Beane has put together some great rosters, and Sean McDermott should have been able to do. We talked about this back on Monday. I thought Sean McDermott, with the injuries and with the roster he was presented with, had one of his greater coaching jobs, or better coaching jobs, since he arrived with the Bills. It was amazing at point. I even said during the beginning of the season, I don't think looking at this team, they're just going to run away with the AFC East again. They're a playoff team for sure.
We thought they were going to take a step back last season,
right,
in 24, after they jettisoned Stephon Diggs. Gabe Davis left. They got rid of Jordan Poyer, Mitch Morse, Tre'Davious White, all these guys that have been core pieces of what they did for so many years.
And half of them came back.
Right. But to Terry Pegula's mind, he believes Brandon Beane has assembled the talent and the roster, and he pointed out we wouldn't have Josh Allen without Brandon Beane, because Brandon Beane was the guy who really wanted to go get Josh Allen. That's at least the way Terry presented it, that Brandon Beane has done enough to warrant this team being a Super Bowl contender, and they should have broken through at some point. Now, we can argue about that point, and I think both of us agree that the roster has not been as good as it had been in the past. Maybe 3-4 years ago was maybe the peak to me of what the roster was. But Terry Pegula believes they should have been able to break through at some point, and that's why he got rid of Sean McDermott.
I just see things so opposite of that. It's incredible with over the last couple of years, the wide receiver group brought up a ton of times in this, specifically Keon Coleman, but the whole everybody eats thing. I remember even early, not this past season, but the season before, having conversations of, this everybody eats mantra does well until nobody can eat. And you have the Houston Texans game, and then other games where they have to go out and get Amari Cooper. Like, that should have said something to you going into this season about really beefing up the wide receiver core, but instead it was like a double down. And I just look at that and think that Brandon Beane let the team down there. This focus on getting a pass rush never developed. So what are we saying? What was so great about what Brandon Beane has done?
I think that Terry Pegula thinks because they have Josh Allen, who he believes is the best player in football,
right,
they should be able to win it with the guys they have surrounded themselves with. He cited 13 seconds. He cited the missed field goal in the divisional round against Kansas City. He cited last season's game, and he, of course, cited what happened with the call. It was interesting to me that at first he made it sound like he was blaming the officiating for why he fired Sean McDermott.
It did, yeah.
By the way he presented himself and presented his argument and his case as for why he wanted to move on and have a different voice and leadership in that head coaching seat. And then he later clarified it wasn't because of a bad call. While he disagrees with that call, it was the culmination of things, with that game being the last straw. Now, he was asked, had the Bills defeated Denver, but then lost in the AFC Championship game, had the Bills advanced to the AFC Championship game and then the Super Bowl and lost in the Super Bowl, would Sean McDermott still be the coach? And he said, I don't want to speculate on that. I made the decision I made.
And I agree with that. I think that's fair. Like, the whole idea of what would
it's
you have
hypothetical.
Yeah, what would you have done in this situation? I mean, that's something you do sitting around, a bar or hanging out with your friends to bring that up. I mean, we're talking about the NFL here. And at the end of the day, I think the point is fine that we just have to move on, where we're getting to a certain point in the postseason and we're not getting past it, and that's not good enough. What lies ahead? Oh boy, you better play this one right on the nose, because if the expectation is to do better than you were doing with Sean McDermott, who I still say is the top coach out there for teams who are looking for a new head coach, that you better hit this new coach perfectly.
Terry Pegula was asked, is it Super Bowl or bust next season for the next head coach? Because I think in a lot of the minds of fans, if you're going to move on from Sean McDermott the way that they did, the expectation from fans and the pressure then is, all right, if the guy you bring in doesn't win immediately, did you upgrade? Did you make a mistake? Mm-hmm. He said it is not Super Bowl or bust for the next head coach in 2026, but there is pressure. Their goal, make no bones about it, is to win the Super Bowl. And he said it is a risk. He's taking a risk by making this move, but he thought it was a risk that he had to make.
I liked when he was asked at one point, do you think you made the right choice moving on from McDermott and not Brandon Beane? And he basically, I can't think off the top of my head, but he was like, I hope so. Like, his response was something towards that effect. And that brings up the other big question, and maybe the biggest moment during this press conference, or one of them, was the whole idea of keeping Beane over McDermott. And the question with Bills Mafia was, Beane had Terry Pegula's ear. Did he do something to sink Sean McDermott and move on from him? I believe the term power play was used a couple of times.
I mean, we all talked about it because we thought, for the most part, throughout this tenure, that Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott were in lockstep. They were a package deal. Mm-hmm. While, of course, you'll have discrepancies about certain guys to bring in, different things like that, that they were aligned and in lockstep. And so a lot of people have said, did Brandon Beane somehow stab Sean McDermott in the back through all of this? Mm-hmm. And Brandon Beane vehemently defended himself. He said, it is BS if anyone attacks my character that way. Mm-hmm. He cited all the many different examples of him throughout the years of defending Sean McDermott. When the Tyler Dunn Go Long article came out a couple of years ago, right, that was very damning about Sean McDermott and his ability to win the big game and the things that had gone on behind the scenes there. He said, I defended him after that. I have never in my life, throughout my career, stabbed people in the back. He said, I've had people's back, and I feel like this is character assassination, mm-hmm, and I'm not going to put up with it.
Yeah, and
so he was very upset about that.
And Terry Pegula said he would not put up with a power play.
Right.
Which then I said, well, you're the owner of the Sabres, and the Sabres power play is not that great, but the Sabres are playing better now.
We didn't talk about this ahead of time, and it's funny because in the media room that same joke came up, and they said,
it's an easy joke.
Somehow Seth Appert, who is in charge of the Sabres power play, is catching strays from a Bills press conference. So that was good stuff, yeah.
So it was good, but to see Brandon Beane defend himself like that and Terry Pegula defend Brandon Beane like that shows what's going on there, but
is Pegula right in having that faith, though?
I was just going to say, it doesn't make it right,
mm-hmm, at
the end of the day, and I don't know. Part of me is like, what would you rather do if you're Terry Pegula? Go out looking for a new GM while Sean McDermott's the head coach, or keep the GM and go find a new head coach?
To me, it boils down to they started not to see things eye to eye in, mm-hmm, terms of players. Now, I don't think the relationship was utterly fractured. I don't think that they were not on speaking terms. I just think the relationship, the working relationship, and the way that they saw things in building and constructing things had run its course. And Pegula was asked about reports from a couple of different outlets that Pegula and Beane and McDermott had a meeting several weeks ago, okay, in which McDermott expressed his displeasure with the talent on the roster, saying they needed more at this spot or that spot, and it wasn't taken too kindly by Pegula and Beane. Pegula said he doesn't know where that came from, and it's not true.
Okay.
Now, whether you believe him or not, I don't know. People say things in these press conferences, obviously.
Yeah.
not everything is 100% accurate.
Yeah.
But obviously, it wasn't perfect, or the guy would still be here, you would think. Now, I'm not saying it was a power play.
Right.
I'm just saying that the relationship had grown apart in terms of the way that they were seeing things.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, maybe the writing was on the wall. One of the other things going around was, did Josh Allen have any input in this? And how does Josh Allen feel about it? Because oddly, we never heard from Josh Allen on locker cleanout day, which we always did. And at the time, I mean, Josh Allen was dealing with what? 900 injuries by the time the season ended.
Speaking of which, he is going to have some sort of procedure on his foot that did bother him down the stretch.
Right. And that was the one that kind of stood out because that was lingering for weeks and weeks and weeks. But at the end of the day, no, Allen was not consulted before they made the decision to move on from Sean McDermott.
He said, Terry Pegula, I'm talking about, said that he did not talk to Josh Allen ahead of making this decision. He did speak to him about it afterwards. He was asked, what were Josh's feelings about this situation? Is he upset that McDermott's gone? Is he happy McDermott's gone? Somewhere in between. And he said he'll keep those things private. However, Josh Allen, as you would expect and would make sense, will have some input in the hiring of the next head coach, just as he has with offensive coordinators in the past and quarterbacks coaches.
And they both said that the search for the new head coach is basically 100% open right now. Joe Brady
has already interviewed.
Been the one that they officially announced has already interviewed at this point. And the question comes up, Sean McDermott, a defensive-minded head coach, with Josh Allen at the helm right now and needing a Super Bowl, does it make more sense at this point to get an offensive-minded head coach for the team? But the early list being reported floats around 50-50 between coaches with defensive backgrounds and coaches with offensive backgrounds.
And Beane was asked, is it important to bring in the greatest offensive mind you can find? Because that guy is here. If he has success, you don't worry about the offensive coordinator leaving in 2 years,
right?
And then having to find another OC to work with Allen while he's only got a few years left of his prime. How much does that weigh into it? And he said, we'll consider that, but we want someone who's a CEO. It's much more than being a fantastic play caller or a fantastic guy at drawing up plays to begin with, a scheme guy. There's a lot that goes into being a head coach more than just calling plays. So that could definitely open up the market to beyond, these wonderkin types, right? Mm-hmm. These guys who were in the Mike McDaniel mode a few years ago before he went to the Dolphins. These play-calling geniuses who maybe aren't adept, whether they're a first-time head coach or they're not great at it, at just leading a team. Now, if they can find a guy, I think the best option would be to find a guy who is both a leader, a CEO type, all over those things, but also really in tune, really sharp with the X's and O's, and an innovator in that way.
Yeah, 100%. Ultimately, I think this does swing towards the offensive coordinator, offensive-minded head coach, just because of where they're at, and you can bring someone in to call the defense and get a solid defense there. And again, this is all going to depend on Brandon Beane and what they're going to put together during the offseason for what this roster is ultimately going to be for whoever comes in as head coach. And that, to me, is part of this, too, with Beane, is we talk about they need to make a perfect swing with the head coach. There's a lot on Brandon Beane right now with that promotion and sticking on as general manager that, okay, you have the owner, Terry Pegula, saying you have put together a very talented roster that should be winning, so now it's on you.
And it goes back to the original question that's been bandied about for months now. Did Brandon Beane do enough for Josh Allen, to help Josh Allen? Did he screw up the wide receiver position? And he was asked directly almost about that, and never really said, like, I fully screwed this up. They still kind of, like, leaned into the salary cap constraints, the everybody eats, the whole idea that because defenses were getting smaller and faster to cover up the pass game, that we leaned into the run game and the tight ends.
Mm-hmm.
I think he knows they need to get better and get a number one receiver somehow, some way. But he didn't fully box himself into that point because he did box himself in with his WGR interview after the draft last spring.
Right, and that's where this whole thing started with the wide receiver position, Andy. And McDermott did say something to the effect of, would I have liked to have done some things different? Maybe.
Beane, you mean?
Yeah, Beane.
Yeah.
What did I say, McDermott? Yeah. Beane.
He really would have liked to have done some things different.
I think so, yeah. And Keon Coleman's name he's still on the roster, and you would think he was some sort of pariah the way that they were talking about him. When asked about the Keon Coleman selection to Brandon Beane, Terry Pegula didn't even let him answer. He jumped right on Mike and was like, the coaches wanted Keon Coleman. And Brandon Beane was a team player and agreed to it.
That, to me, was the most unbelievable part of this press conference, that they are fully pinning the selection of Keon Coleman on the coaching staff. John Warrow from the Associated Press later clarified, he said, with Pegula, that wasn't Sean's pick, but that Brandon was convinced about Keon Coleman by someone on the coaching staff. So is that Joe Brady? Is that the wide receivers coach? Whoever, right?
Well, on social media now, people are pulling up clips from a Bills Embedded episode or one of those things where Beane is talking about how much they want Keon Coleman.
Right.
But at the same time,
so that's
they went and got Keon Coleman. So when you're putting that out, what are you going to put down how much he wants someone,
Right. But that's surprising to me that they would then not just come out and say, hey, it was a team pick. We made the pick.
Right.
We've got belief in this guy. We'll see where it goes.
And then
they know that it went south with Keon, obviously. We all saw it. That's the hard part about, like, the whole, did they put enough talent around him at wide receiver? Is the roster talented enough? We all have eyes.
Right.
We saw it. Josh Allen, with him at his powers, if you put a really incredible offense around him, they should dominate their way to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
They should cruise to get there. Now, you'll have bumps along the way, but it shouldn't be this struggle and this fight to win every game.
Right.
You should dominate when you have a guy like that with the star players you have around him.
And even at the trade deadline, we talked about this on Monday, where they had a chance to improve and they did not. And then you're bringing guys in like Brandon Cooks and other veteran, older wide receivers to try and fill gaps in the offense. The Jalen Waddle thing will always be confusing to me if you have Josh Allen and you had a chance to do that. I don't care what the Dolphins were asking for.
Now I've heard that maybe it wasn't true.
So
now that could be, I'm just telling you,
people are
going to put things out to make themselves look good, but that maybe wasn't as in play as people reported. But it also could have been. I'm not reporting that.
Oh, no.
Little
I
things you hear.
understand. It's, again, I'm going by the eye test.
Oh, they could have damn well used Jalen Waddle.
This happened at the trade deadline, and now they're denying it. I don't know. Either way, it doesn't matter.
Bottom line, though, they said they still do have faith in Keon Coleman.
Oh, yeah, I was going to get to that.
The way that went doesn't make it sound like it. I wouldn't be stunned if Keon Coleman's not a Buffalo Bill next year.
And if you're Keon Coleman, do you want to stick around? Or are you like, if you want to trade me, go ahead and trade me. I'd rather go somewhere else.
And it's funny because he has become so polarizing and part of a linchpin of all of this stuff, because if they had hit on Keon Coleman and he's at least a really good number 2 or even elevated to a number 1,
right,
we're not having this conversation.
And he looked so good during training camp that there was so much promise there. He goes from his rookie season, gets injured, kind of slows down. But, I mean, we were both there at St. John Fisher during training camp.
Yeah.
He looked really good.
And he looked good in the Baltimore game.
And then
The wheels fell off, and he stopped showing up on time for meetings.
His alarm didn't go off.
Well, we've all had that in our lives, especially at 22, 23 years old. Think about that.
Yeah.
Think about what you and I were doing at 22, 23 years old. What were you doing then?
So I would have been in college and also waiting tables, and I would have to set my alarm for my 4 o'clock shift at the restaurant in the evening. Because when you wait tables, you then stay out till 5, 6 in the morning, and you're like, I can't believe I got to set my alarm for 3 in the afternoon to rush and get ready and get to the restaurant. So, yeah, I'll give Keon Coleman a little credit for being an NFL wide receiver and having more discipline than I did.
Well, right. Like, I was in my first television job, but I didn't have to go until 4 o'clock, and I would go out and party, and I was making $7.25 an hour.
Ooh, righteous bucks.
I mean, Keon Coleman is probably making that a second. I don't know the math there, but he's making hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars.
And he's on that Fanatics ad that I keep seeing during the playoffs.
Right. In any case.
I think we got a comment.
We do. Oh. Vamp while I look it up.
I will. One of the other things that was talked about was, is this now some sort of rebuild for the Bills with all that's going on, Andy? And a lot of players who are on the roster this year will not be on the roster next year. So is this not a full blown-out rebuild, but is this a form of a rebuild where you got to get different pieces in and maybe it takes a couple of years to get to where you ultimately want to be?
It shouldn't. I think that to say it's a rebuild, it's probably a retool, because Brandon Beane is right in this respect. Whoever he brings in as a new head coach, and then they bring in a new staff, they might need different types of players. They might want to run, in Beane's example, a 3-4 defense instead of a 3-4.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that changes the type of defensive linemen and linebackers you have. What type of offense do they want to run? Do you need more tight ends? Do you need bigger wide receivers? Do you need smaller wide receivers? All the different things there.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, there will be turnover, but it's his job to do it now. Like, you can't play around with, well, in 3 years we'll see if we get there, when Josh Allen's going to turn 30 this year.
Right.
You absolutely can't do that. So if that takes that long, well, then we're probably talking about Brandon Beane in this regard, not Sean McDermott in a few years.
Which, we talked about that before. I think that's what's on the line for Beane. If they're not where they need to be after next season, then maybe that's where you need to make a change.
Let's get to some viewer comments. First on YouTube, Joseph Tedesco. He's been a friend of the show lately.
Mm-hmm.
We all know Terry isn't the most eloquent speaker. Either am I sometimes. It happens. Yes, today felt Billsy. Let's give them some grace. I saw that locker room, and I said to myself, those guys look like their spirit was broken. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and I can't disagree with that. After year, as Pegula pointed out, the heartbreaking losses that the Bills have had, this just chalks it up to one more that it wouldn't surprise me if the guys who have been around the longest and have been the backbone of this team just got their hearts ripped out again, and enough's enough. How many times, Andy, can you get kicked in the teeth before your will is just broken and you need a change? So I agree with how that locker room was. We said it on the postgame show. I've been covering the Bills in the NFL since 2001. I have never seen anything like that after a loss.
It was the most emotional locker room I have ever seen in any sport I've ever covered. And I've been doing TV professionally since 2006, so 20 years. It was incredible. It was a scene, and I think they knew that something had to change. They lost. They were at their end of doing this over and over and over again. So what's the definition of insanity? So this was the change
right.
Terry Pegula sought in that regard. Let's get to a couple more viewer comments while we've got them. Keep them coming, guys. Gerald McElwain. That presser was a total disaster, made the organization look like a joke and dysfunctional. Melissa Rothman commenting, back to Gerard, excuse me. I'm sorry, Gerard. Everyone already thinks we are a joke anyway. This is just another reason to laugh at us. And then Constance Lynn Seal on Facebook says, blaming the wrong ones for the loss. And there's going to be some of that sentiment because of the way it went down with McDermott, which is funny because up until a year or two ago, if people wanted to change, it was McDermott gone, and they loved Beane, big baller Beane, right?
And now the Bills are looked at after this press conference as one of the laughing stocks of the NFL. I even got texts from some of my friends saying the same thing. So you went from a team that a few years ago was the model of an NFL franchise that players would want to come here, play with Josh Allen, play for Sean McDermott, to now you're back at a place where the Bills haven't been since maybe Rex Ryan was coaching the Bills, or Doug Marrone, or
Robert Leader on YouTube in the comments says, back to the bickering Bills. That's back from the 1989 Bills between a trip to the AFC Championship, which they lost. Things got a little hectic there, a little chaotic in 89 before they ultimately go to 4 straight Super Bowls. I'm going to push back a little bit. That press conference outside of the Keon Coleman thing was basically exactly what I expected, especially with Terry Pegula talking. Of course they're going to defend the decision. Of course Brandon Beane is going to defend himself. I don't think it was that bad of a press conference. There were moments, Terry again says some off things.
Mm-hmm.
The interjection on the Keon Coleman question to then throw the coaching staff under the bus for that pick obviously sticks out there. But I don't think it was like this outrageous thing that it's been made out to be.
So it's like during real time when the press conference is going on, and you and I both have notepads with a ton of notes from how the press conference went.
Right.
Again, like you just said, Terry Pegula is Terry Pegula. I always go back to when he first bought the team and they had him up in the CBS booth. That was one of the most uncomfortable things I've ever heard in my life.
He's not great in that setting.
Right.
Which is why partly he hasn't spoken in
I was actually more impressed with how animated he was and how into some of the responses he was than he normally is. So in real time while it's going on, I'm taking notes. I'm like, okay, yeah, we got to talk about that. We got to talk about this. And the whole press conference is centered around why they moved on from Sean McDermott and the reasons. And I think there's some feeling out there from Bills Mafia that there should have been more to that press conference, but there's another time for that. This is about why we fired our head coach and what the next steps are, and not dive into what free agents are you looking to keep and what holes do you need to fill and stuff like that.
Well, as reporters, we talked about this afterwards. None of us really felt that it was appropriate to get into, does David Edwards need a new contract? We'll talk about those things. But, This was a seismic shift in the organization, a major move for a coach that had brought you more success than you had seen in over 20 years as an organization. Won games at a clip that is some of the best in the history of the NFL. Won you 8 playoff games. They've been to the divisional round, 7 years in a row, at least the divisional round?
Mm-hmm.
I know they haven't gotten over the hump, but that needed to be the focus. Why did you get rid of Sean McDermott? What happened between Brandon Beane and Sean McDermott, if anything?
Mm-hmm.
And then how is this going to get better moving forward from a coaching search?
Right.
Those things needed to be the heart of what was discussed.
That's why I think the Keon Coleman thing was kind of awkward.
Well, that mattered, too, because it was part of the wide receiver question. Brandon, did you do enough at wide receiver?
Right.
And Terry, which that was the big thing, jumped in there and said, look, that was on the coaches. So nationally, it's being panned. People are saying they're a disaster. I think some segment of the fan base is doing that. I don't think it was as horrible as some people are making it out to be. Was it perfect? No. But
I don't even...
It was a little enlightening to hear from Terry.
It was, and like you said, we haven't heard from Terry in so long. It was interesting.
Yeah.
My recollection of Terry talking, it's been so long, was one-word answers. The fact that that wasn't what he was doing said a lot to me about, I mean, it's his team. At the end of the day, you're the Bills fans. He's the one who bought the team, kept them in Buffalo, and is building a new stadium. So I think the guy has, even if he's not the most eloquent talker.
Once a year.
I didn't think I'd get eloquent out.
Nailed it.
Good job.
Couldn't say coordinator, but you got eloquent.
Coordinator. That's where I stood on it. If you don't like what he's saying, or when asked, did you talk to other people? Terry Pegula said, it's my team. I made the decision. I don't need anyone else's input.
Right. And he did say that part of the reason he hadn't spoken often, if at all, was obviously the debilitating medical condition of his wife, Kim, who was the president over the organization at one point before she suffered that tragic incident.
Mm-hmm.
He also said, look, I've been real busy. I haven't even gotten to go see Jessie, his daughter, who's the number 3 tennis player in the world.
Right.
But he was also asked, do you plan on making yourself more available to the fans and to the media in the future, especially given that you're about to open a new stadium and that $850 million in taxpayer money helped fund that? He said, yeah, that is a possibility that I am more available.
And with that, I'm not trying to take digs, but
Stefon Diggs,
great catch by Stefon Diggs last week. But you already have people around the Sabres, like you introduced a new general manager the other day and didn't say boo on what's going on. Are you going to do that same thing with the Sabres? I don't know. I think the Sabres are in good hands right now.
I'm good on Terry for a year, but I would like to see him speak at the end of each season.
I would agree with that.
I think that's not unreasonable. I don't need to hear from him all year long. I don't need him to be Jerry Jones.
Right.
And speaking after every game. None of that. But, all right, what happened this season?
Mm-hmm.
Are you okay with your staff? Are you headed in the right direction? You got a new stadium. Are there issues with the stadium? Are you going to open on time? Like, all of those things, right? Do you like how this is all turning out? People wanted to know, are the Sabres for sale? There's been a lot of rumors of that over the years. So he needs to I mean, he doesn't have to do anything I say, right? He doesn't have to do anything anybody says. Should he? Yes. Doesn't have to be often, but it should be at poignant times.
What do you think about the comments about Darius Slay and Jamarcus Ingram and how that all went down? I know I'm kind of going off track and kind of backing up a little bit,
fine.
But that was one of the big sticking points, I think, with Sean McDermott and his beef with Brandon Beane is that they wanted Jamarcus Ingram on the roster. They ultimately bring a guy in who, as Brandon Beane said, had I known he only wanted to play for one team, I would never have done what we did.
Yeah, I mean, he basically said that he thought Darius Slay would be an upgrade at that position for depth. Veteran, guy who's been a good player in the league, played on very good teams, winning teams, and said, had I known that he was not going to report to us after we claimed him on waivers, I wouldn't have done it. Or had I known after we did claim him and found that out, hey, can we rescind this and get Jamarcus back?
Right.
I mean, that's, to me, an honest mistake if you think that you're going to get a guy that's going to improve you. It just didn't work out. Maybe Sean didn't think even that was a good move to begin with. I don't know.
Yeah, possibly. And then Slay was at the Eagles game.
Right. And then, of course, we went down this road the other day, but Jamarcus Ingram then gets picked up by the Texans, and then Bills have injuries. Maxwell Harrison gets hurt.
Mm-hmm.
He's not available for that Denver game. Trey White cramping or whatever that was at the end of the 2-minute drive there in the fourth quarter.
Bad timing there.
Exactly. So then Jamarcus Ingram probably would have been the next man up because he was on the active roster after Hairston, after Trey.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was not available, and then they had to use Dane Jackson, who's a veteran and has been with the Bills a couple of stints for a long time, but he was on the practice squad for a reason.
Yeah.
He goes in cold, Sean Payton takes advantage, hits the touchdown.
Smart move.
Yeah.
You'd expect that from Sean Payton. So now, go ahead.
Are you more or less confident in this team right now after this press conference?
Less
confident.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think with the national look at this team, I think that this is going to affect bringing in free agents. I think, like, if you're
players weren't happy either on the Bills.
Right. And, oh, by the way, the next head coach is going to report to Brandon Beane.
Yes, I did ask that.
Oh, that was you.
I asked it. He kind of went around about and said things won't change. A couple minutes later, Elena Getzenberg, our pal from ESPN, cycled back and said, just to clarify, is the coach directly reporting to you or not? Even though I had just asked that. He said yes.
So, I don't know. That leads me to believe you're probably going with a younger up-and-comer rather than a veteran who's been there, done that before, and is going to have an issue with, like Harbaugh when he went to the Giants. I'm not reporting to Joe Shane. That's got to be part of the deal. I report to the owner. And you're not getting that in Buffalo.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't make a determination, and that's not great hot take radio, so to speak.
Ooh.
To me, it remains to be seen.
I keep seeing on talk radio from down in New York City and some of the stuff in Boston, Bill Belichick's name coming up, and I don't know why that would even come up at this stage in the game, other than you could stick it to the Patriots.
You come in with a ready-made MVP quarterback.
Right. And
you're the ultimate, CEO guy.
The one thing that I did kind of perk my ears to with bringing in Belichick is you don't bring him in for long term. You get to the Super Bowl and win it because you have a head coach who knows how to get to the Super Bowl.
How old is he now?
I don't know. What am I, his biographer? That's an old line from Clerks. I'm sorry.
All right. Clerks is a little early. He's 73.
Okay.
So he's probably only coaching for a few more years.
Yeah.
I don't see that.
I don't either.
I could see Dable.
I really could see Dable. His relationship with Josh Allen
right.
remained tight after he left.
But is he the great CEO type?
Maybe he learned his lesson with the Giants.
That could be. I'll say this about Dable. His teams were not fantastic in the NFL as an offensive coordinator. Had some success at Alabama. His best success in the NFL was with Josh Allen.
Right.
So maybe that could work. I don't know. You're not going to be afraid about losing him. He's from Buffalo.
Right.
He didn't want to go anywhere else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a possibility. I'm still of the young offensive mind, but I don't know that fits the CEO type that Brandon was talking about, unless they find somebody who they think is that guy up and coming.
Well, when that came up, that to me was the big question moving forward, because I like Kubiak.
Yeah.
If we're going to go young, you like Davis Webb.
But that's a guy who's not even called plays before. He's just a coordinator or a QB coach.
Right. So,
but then do you
where the Bills are at right now, they might not have as much of a choice eventually, because it seems like this is going to play out till after the Super Bowl.
What if you hire a young coach, offensive mind, but you surround him with a former head coach as a DC, something like that?
I think that would work. I would easily go with Kubiak and then some former head coach who's defensive-minded as the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, just to help.
/ assistant head coach or whatever they do. Everyone has ludicrous titles.
Sean McDermott was a relatively young coach when he came in, didn't have head coaching experience, and then brought in Leslie Frazier.
Right.
And that was good for a time, and it ran its course as well. But I think, his experience probably helped Sean along the way in those early years of how to set up a program, how to deal with the interpersonal communication, the egos, the different people in the building, right? Like when you're an OC and you can just lock yourself in the lab and chat with your quarterback and chat with your receivers coach, that's different than overseeing and being a face of an organization. It just is.
Yeah.
What do you think about Brady? He got the interview officially.
Brady official. I just, if you're going to move on from Sean McDermott, why would you then name Joe Brady the head coach? To me, there's too much of a connection there. If you're going to make a change, make a real change, because Joe Brady, to me, if you're going to get rid of McDermott, Joe Brady was also part of the problem.
Right. But was Dable part of the problem 4 years ago?
No, but the team was like younger back then and up and coming. They weren't expected to be a Super Bowl contender back then, which is the difference. Now is you're in that window where you're expected to be in an AFC championship game with a chance to go to the Super Bowl and get there. Not, oh, look at us. We tore it up.
Yeah, I would like to see fresh ideas. You've made this decision.
Right.
You fired the coach who has won a lot of games for you and said that's not good enough. I feel like you just want some overall fresh ideas from the outside.
Yeah. So reported, Joe Brady official reported Brian Daboll was last the Giants head coach. Anthony Lynn was a finalist for the Bills head coach back in 2017 when McDermott
He was an interim head coach for one game that year after Rex Ryan was fired,
right.
And also the OC that year after Greg Roman was fired.
Oh, that's right.
Mid-season.
Greg Roman was just fired again. Anthony Weaver, defensive coordinator down in Miami. Grant Udzinski, Jacksonville offensive coordinator, was an interesting name when that popped up to me.
Now that's the offensive young wonderkind. I think he's not 30 years old. That would be a really young head coach who comes from the Kevin O'Connell tree, I believe, in Minnesota, then went down with Liam Cohen in Jacksonville.
It had something to do with Sam Darnold's turnaround. Not that Josh Allen needs a turnaround.
And Trevor Lawrence this season as well, right?
Yeah.
Had a much better year, Trevor Lawrence did. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. And, again, this is not great hot take radio, but I kind of just don't know till I see the guy on the field. I can't make all these declarations because I just don't know how young guys who've never done it before are going to pan out, or even how retread guys are going to pan out. You just don't know. I would like to just see some new, different ideas if you're going to make this change.
Yep. And on the Sean McDermott side, there's reports that the Browns are interested in talking to him, and possibly McDermott headed to Cleveland. I mean, he's a guy who can change a culture, and that Browns culture sure isn't great.
What if he went to Baltimore?
I would love if he went to Baltimore.
Pittsburgh.
I mean, just as far as matchups go moving forward, it'd be interesting to have McDermott down in Baltimore.
And then it's the ultimate fear. Does McDermott win a Super Bowl before Josh Allen?
Yep, there it is. It's right in your face.
Mm-hmm.
Or Pittsburgh. When we were on here last, I was talking about him going to Miami, and unbeknownst to me, Miami already had hired a head coach while we were on the air. But I don't know. The Browns' job is just so not enticing.
Their quarterback situation is screwed up. Pittsburgh's quarterback situation is screwed up. Baltimore,
Arizona,
they might be moving on from Kyler Murray.
The Raiders.
Mess.
Yeah.
Geno Smith. No. First overall pick.
Yeah.
You like that Fernando Mendoza? Did you watch any of the national championship game?
I watched the beginning of the national championship game, fell asleep on the couch, and woke up to the celebration, and then walked upstairs and went to bed.
A lot of people have said, what about Kurt Cignetti?
So that's what I'll give my dad credit every now and then. I do. That's what he thinks is going to happen. He thinks the Raiders are going to do it, and then
I'm talking about the Bills.
Oh, no.
No.
I don't think so. This isn't the situation for him.
Right.
I was talking about the Raiders with the quarterback going to the Raiders.
Mendoza and the coach?
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, Mendoza, I don't know if his skills are going to be exactly what you need in the NFL, but, like, that dude is a gamer.
Yeah.
He's accurate. And, like, when he's done, like, can you see him sitting up there taking questions? Like, if you watch his post-game interviews, the guy, he'll look to the interviewer, and then he looks into the camera when he gives his answer.
That's perfect.
Like I should be doing now. I was waiting for Jordan to put it on my one shot here. He didn't do it. But anyway, Fernando Mendoza, the quarterback for Indiana, he could either be a politician when he's done, or have a job in WWE because that dude can cut a promo.
That's great. Well, I mean,
They're kind of one and the same, aren't they?
yeah, pretty much so, especially this day and age. But we are not a political program.
No.
So we're not, at any rate.
Turn into Errol Lewis for that.
Yes, the big deal.
Yeah.
The new deal, the big deal.
The New Deal, not the New Deal.
Not the new deal. All right, Andy, before we go, Championship Sunday's coming up around the corner. You have the Patriots at the Jared Stidham-led Denver Broncos.
The Patriots are going back to the Super Bowl, aren't they?
I would think so, going up against Jared Stidham, which
remarkable.
is just unreal.
Remarkable.
And then you have the Rams and the Seahawks going up against each other. So either way, if the Patriots go, that's a Super Bowl rematch.
I mean, the Patriots might have has already been against a backup quarterback the way C.J. Stroud played.
He was horrible in that game.
Dude, I think they have to move on from him.
Yeah.
He's horrible.
They played better with Davis Mills, I think.
Now, where everyone's going to say, oh, Josh Allen had 4 turnovers too. Different story. Josh Allen is much more proven.
I would never do that on the Buffalo End Zone podcast. But, yeah, that game against the Bills, now I just forgot his name.
C.J. Stroud.
No, their backup who played against the Bills. Davis Mills.
Not Davis Webb.
Davis Mills.
Not Webb Simpson. Not Davis Love III.
Homer Simpson. So, I don't know. Part of me thinks it would be interesting if you have a Patriots-Rams Super Bowl because the Patriots' first Super Bowl win was over the Rams and their last Super Bowl win was over the Rams.
I'm going to say...
but I think Seattle's too good. I love Seattle. If you were like, hey, pick a team on the NFC, Jackson Smith and Jigba, to me, is one of the most exciting wide receivers I've seen in a long time. I get Puka Nacua is there on the Rams.
I'm going to pick Seattle over New England for the Super Bowl.
I agree with that.
And I just don't know that Bills Mafia can stomach watching the Patriots after their little 5-year break hoist the Lombardi, especially given everything that's going on right now with Buffalo.
I think the bulk of the league, Andy, would instantly switch from hating the Chiefs the most to right back to hate the Patriots more than any other team in the league.
Yeah.
So, but we got to get through championship weekend, which is always fun.
It's going to be great.
And then every day we'll be on the lookout for the Bills getting a new head coach.
We'll pop up with another podcast if we hear rumors that someone's getting close, whatever that might be.
Try to come back with another Buffalo End Zone podcast at least once a week to kind of
during the off season. We typically try to keep it once a week. Now that we're actually in the off season, once a week, unless we're both somehow on vacation. But a lot of times, even one of us will be here. Kevin will bring on Stevie Johnson. If I'm off, I'll bring on Stevie or another guest, media member, whatever. We might dip back into those celebrity podcasts a little bit too in the off season. I think that's a good time for Buffalo brethren to celebrate Bills fans that have gone on to bigger things around the world.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see.
By the way, I've applied to be a high school football referee next fall. What do you think?
The vertical stripes are better than horizontal.
That's why I'm doing it right there. I need something to do on a Friday night.
Are you going to do it in shorts? Like the coach, 80s jockey coach shorts? You know,
when it's warm out at the beginning of the season,
God.
You got to.
Do you have football spikes? You got to get
Not
some.
right now. I got hockey skates.
I'm going to get you some. If you do this.
Old-timey.
If you do this.
Yeah.
You have to promise me, if you buy football spikes.
Yeah.
You buy some Air Jordan football spikes. They're not even like more expensive than the regular ones.
Fine. I will.
All right. Some Jordan 1 football cleats for Kevin Carroll with his high socks, the high knee socks, the short shorts.
Whistle around my neck.
Do you want to what do you like? Line judge, umpire, back judge?
All I know is this. I'm a guy who wants the players to decide the game. So you're not getting much out of me.
You're not even bringing the flags with you.
No.
What if you have to break up a fight?
With like a parent?
No.
That's the one thing I keep thinking of.
Oh, getting screamed at by parents.
Parents yelling at me.
I mean, it won't be any worse than the heckling we get as TV reporters and anchors.
That's true, too. So we're kind of used to
Thin
it.
skin.
All right, the off season is upon us, and it's going to be a busy
I
one.
can't believe you're going to be a ref.
I said I'm looking into it.
I love it.
There's like an orientation next
That's
Tuesday or something like that. All right. For Andy Young, Kevin Carroll, as always, everyone, thanks for joining us, and we'll catch up with you again next week.